All right. First of all, thank you very much for the wonderful introductions, and thank you to the panelists for joining me here. I feel very fortunate to have so much expertise on the stage with me today. I'd like to start with a couple thoughts on Zinnov's experience in this space. First of all, it's interesting that we're right behind the discussion about really the human side of driving adoption of these new technologies and changes with something that can be seen as more threatening to some of the employees. But at Zinnov, we believe this is a very positive story, that this is going to enable companies to do far more, far faster, and really drive change that makes the world a better place. And in the process, we believe it will add 5 million jobs over the next 5 years. The next point is that the adoption of intelligent automation is accelerating dramatically. We know that COVID was a huge factor in pushing things forward. And even though adoption is slowing for the moment, where things go from desperate adoption to more deliberate pacing, there's a huge amount of increase in both the supply of great new technologies, the demand, the technologies that help you implement this faster, and the level of investment, the M&A and the venture capital going into this $300 billion market really tells you that there's a huge wave of growth coming. The next point is that automation isn't just operational efficiency, it makes a better product. It can dramatically improve the experience for both your end customers, building more loyalty, a better relationship with the users, as well as your employees. It's a great counter for the Great Resignation, helping you attract people by making the job more engaging and more rewarding because you're driving change. We hear more and more employees want to be change agents, and by clearing more of the repetitive tasks off their plate, they get more of that sense of accomplishment. The last point is that we're seeing so many shocks to the system right now. COVID, of course, was a huge example. The recent conflict in the Ukraine, supply chain disruptions, all of these things are constant, and new technologies emerging will continue to cause disruption at an increasing pace. Automation can do a lot to build resiliency in companies by helping you react and model issues faster and then implement the changes. So there's a huge upside to getting this right. Right now, what I'd like to do is ask one question that all the panelists can take a quick turn with, and that's how will these big concepts of hyper-intelligent automation impact the daily life of individual employees? Ruchi, if you'd like to start.
So I think at the ground level, there's still a lot to do before it really changes the way we do things, right? Like we've already started seeing some parts of it. So for example, for me personally, I now tend to use voice assistant to really, like that's one sense of automation, right? Like I can just record and then it types in the document and then I can go back, edit it, right? So this is just a very common example of the automation I'm using personally right now.
Excellent. Pascal?
Thank you. I think it's a few things. First of all, it's about relieving the people from those tedious, repetitive, transactional tasks and giving them the opportunity to refocus on what really matters. What are those exciting activities, but those activities that are also creating the largest value. I'm thinking here of creativity, I'm thinking of critical thinking, I'm thinking of relationship with the others. And on the other side of the spectrum, it's about augmenting us. So giving us the capacity to analyze data in just a few seconds and get the few insights from it by collaborating with technology. So that's
excellent.
That's my
Kumar?
So Peter, when I came to the registration desk, for a moment I thought they will ask me to circle traffic light pictures on a piece of paper just to make sure I'm not a robot. So I think, three things come to my mind, right? Work has always changed over the years, right? Automation is not new, right? I'll quote an example. We work with a robotics company that is deployed in a large chain of stores across the nation. What this robot does is it goes through the aisles, scans the inventory levels, the price mismatches, right? And placements, right? So you probably might have seen it in Milpitas store where you see a person typically going to the aisles with a pen and a pad and noting things down and enter into the system, right? Now that is done by a robot. This person does advanced level of tasks, right? Where they are coordinating the supply chain, they are probably deciding the placement strategies, right? They're also coordinating with the supply chain vendors, right? So that so to me personally, it's going to elevate the level of work people do with automation, technologies, and we'll probably see more of this, with all the hybrid workforce that we'll see in the workplace.
I love that example. At one point in high school, I had to work in a machine shop that required inventory on a monthly basis, and everybody groaned.
Yeah.
So that one strikes home for me. Excellent. Param.
Yeah, like Kumar said, I agree. The repetitive and mundane will disappear. People will focus on like more creative aspects of their work. They'll focus on things that drive innovation, change, and those things. I also predict that the workforce of future will work much less than their parents did. The arrival of whether a 4-week work or a 30-hour work week is not too far away. And thanks to some of the things that innovation platforms will introduce. And the last thing I'll say is I think work will be more fun. People will enjoy what they do more than what they do today.
Certainly hope so.
I should say that Param started a new trend. It's a hybrid panel now.
Exactly, yeah. It's nice to live what we're talking about sometimes. Okay, so now I'd like to target one question for each of you and then allow the other panelists to react. I'd love to start with Param. And you've obviously been at the head of automation companies for quite some time. What have you seen during those past years? How has the transformation journey been going?
Absolutely. So RPA started as a back office initiative to address some of the human capacity bottlenecks that people were seeing in back office processes. Over the years, what's happened is it's elevated itself into an enterprise platform, into an enterprise initiative that helps things like managing end-to-end process with orchestration of work between humans and robots, like driving that coordination and that balance of work across collaboration between humans and bots. AI has helped automate processes, make computing understand the unstructured world that we live in and help it process like it's a structured data set. So AI has been immensely helpful across various different use cases, from document understanding to computer vision to predictions to things of that nature. We've also seen that the focus of the hyper automation platforms have changed from being back office, repetitive, mundane work productivity of business users, helping business users create automation, helping business users run automation as part of their daily tasks. And I think we're at a very interesting cusp now of actually business transformation that's happening through digital transformation. What's happening is now seeing that the hyper automation platforms are becoming part of the digital transformation for companies. We'll see a lot of innovation that happened in the last 20 years in the enterprises was around putting ERP and CRM systems in place that were mainly geared towards a standard way of doing things in the enterprise. A digital transformation is all about breaking the standards and creativity and innovation around those boundaries. And that's what high intelligence platforms enable customers to do, to be able to innovate around the core, to be able to do things that weren't possible today with the current IT platforms. So I'll stop there. I could go on for a long time.
Oh, that's great. Any follow-ups on that about what we've seen over the past few years?
I think user friendliness is something that is so important today, and I think we talked about it earlier in this event. The democratization with low-code technologies and giving the access and the capacity to everyone in a company to join the transformation, to basically act on their own daily work and improve it and see the impact of it is something that is tremendous.
That's huge, definitely. And okay, so moving to the next question. In fact, I'd like to go back to you because it builds well on going from the past. Going forward, how much of work in total do you think can be automated?
Good question. And maybe to give you a bit of background on how I got to the answer I will give you. The employee experience is extremely important. And according to Harvard Business Review, companies that care about their employees' experience are 4 times more profitable than those that don't. Okay? Unfortunately, what we see on the market, in reality, and I'm taking it from Gallup, you know, this famous research company, says that more than 85% of the employees in the world are not satisfied by their work. They think it's too transactional, tedious, not interesting. So how come? And while writing the book Intelligent Automation, my co-authors and I researched on that point and wondered what is the current state of what people are doing as employees? What are we, in average, doing in our day? And how can this be improved by intelligent automation? The outcome is that it's 3/3, okay? It's divided into 3 equal chunks. The first one is activities that can be automated. Think of those transactional, repetitive, logistic type of activities that we do on a day-to-day basis. 1/3 of it is here. Second third is those activities that we do, but we shouldn't be doing. And think here of unproductive meetings, unproductive emails, all that we do when we are not focused. And these 1/3 of total activity can be eliminated, okay? And I'll tell you just after how. Thirdly, the third bucket are about those activities that are delivering the highest value in our jobs. Those activities that we need to augment, basically, that we need to use technology to augment us, to be more effective and efficient at doing those. So my advice to answer your question, my advice to people and to management is to identify for each of those 3 buckets what are the key technologies they should use. For those tasks that has to be automated, of course, RPA, business process management systems, and so on can help. For those tasks that should be eliminated, think here of using technology as a coach. Okay, we have today some virtual assistants that can help you identify that you are, for example, inviting 5 people in a meeting, while we all know that when you invite more than 3 to 4 people in a meeting, the outcome won't be the one that you expect, or you won't be as efficient as you should be in this meeting. And for the last chunk, it's about using technologies that help us to augment us. And where should we be augmented? It's when we take decisions. So focusing on how to support, augment, and automate our decisions is another key point. The last point I want to mention, we know that those are 3 opportunities to improve work today. I think we need to make sure that we analyze and use the different levers equally across those 3 in order to have a balanced outcome, okay? Don't automate only and don't think about the 2 other ones. Think about the 3 ones at the same time so that you have a holistic approach and the outcome is balanced.
So just wanted to add to what
Yes.
Pascal said, Peter, so we have a TAC center where the tier 1 support engineers call is to call customers throughout the day, book appointments, and log it into the database, right? Mm-hmm. So the way we went about that is how can we elevate this, right? My theme is, we created a solution that integrated a conversational agent with a VoIP technology, which could make these calls, many of them throughout the day, and only the agent needs to attend to the value-added tasks, right? If there is any conflict,
Sure.
the additional help, advice that is required. So we are doing 2 things, right? You're able to get more done through the day, and you're also making the job of the support engineer more meaningful. Mm-hmm. I think that's the way we probably should approach.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Excellent. Param, did you have anything to add? I know it's harder to interject remotely.
No, I agree with a lot of the comments and observations made there. Those really, really great use cases.
Great. Then let's go with a question for Kumar. How do you see these new tools impacting companies' ability to attract and retain the employees they want? Is this part of the cure for the Great Resignation? And how will this impact the HR side of things?
Yeah, so I think one of the Zinnov reports talks about this triangle, right? CX, PX, and EX. Personally, I'm very passionate about engineers' experience, right? But for the efforts of the software engineers, we probably wouldn't have been able to go about our life last 2 years, because whether it is grocery delivery, doctor, consultation or video, right? The COVID resources probably have been made possible because of all the efforts of the software engineers. So we, at our organization also, we constantly think about how can we make engineers' life easy, right? In terms of their day in life, right? So it's about learning the systems, the code that they're building, testing, how can we intelligently test them? How can we deploy it? I was reflecting on early part of my career, where we used to build these credit card payment transaction systems. You could go literally touch the server where the software is deployed, right? You could literally go see the storage array where the data is written. Nowadays, it is not the case, right? You write code, it's a lot of microservices, right? Packaged up in containers, deployed in global cloud environment, right? And add to that, the reliability, privacy, data locality, and sustainability, some of the panel members. So there is a lot being asked of software engineers these days, right? Sure. So we constantly think about how can we make it easy for them so that they can focus more on innovation than diagnosing issues or attending to customer incidents. So,
does that tend to be a benefit that comes into play once someone's in the company and experiences the tools, or is it something that people as candidates would be aware enough that they want to work for companies that have this infrastructure?
I believe that it makes a difference. We start from onboarding, right? Like, when you bring an engineer on board, there is a lot that they have to go through in the first 6 weeks, right? They're trying to prove themselves, right? So if we can make it easy for them to get access to your KM systems, mentoring programs, right? All the resources that are around the enterprise, if you make it easy for them, their experience and their ability to actually produce value in the quickest amount of time is going to go up dramatically.
Excellent. Ruchi, did you have a follow-up?
I have a very, so I'll touch on a couple of things that
Please.
have been said earlier. So change is inevitable, and automation, of course, right, like is a key to our progress. So the only reason I'm able to raise my kids and we have a fulfilling professional career is because of a lot of automation, right? Like I have a lot of tools at my hand, so I can integrate my personal life into my work life. Having said that, I want to take a little bit of a broader view on automation. So for example, we talked about the customer service, right? Yes, there are things, mundane tasks. If I want to cancel my reservation, it has become very easy because I can just do it through automatic workflows. But then there is this whole thing of taking automation too far, right? Like not drawing that lines. How many times I've heard, and then we think automation because we are the generation leading it. So we are very comfortable with it. But then there's the whole set of generation we have left behind. I have a lot of neighbors who are old and they just get stuck on the phone for 15 minutes because they are being in this constantly automated loop. If you want this, press 1. If you want this, press 2. And you have no options and they're just stuck. And then sometimes even I'm stuck. Like I wait like 20 minutes, 30 minutes to be able to talk to someone because that problem is unsolvable. So I think my view on this is that we have to look at it differently. Again, being in tech, big proponent of automation, but I think we have to start looking at it holistically. We live in our tech bubble, And we think just because we can do automation and we are going to make life easier for everyone. But look at it, right? Like we keep saying we're going to do this and we're going to reduce the workforce by this. Because we are assuming we are adding all these value-added tasks. So every kid who is now, being born or in young stage wants to be an engineer, and he just wants to work in the augmented reality, or they want to do highly technical problems. But there are kids who want different kind of work and different kind of approach to life. So what do we do about them, right? Are we gonna tell them just come and be on the top of the pyramid because there's no other job is existing for you because we are gonna automate the heck out of it, right? So those are the questions I worry about, right? It means, again, it has to go hand in hand, but I don't think it has to come as an afterthought on how do we solve this problem, right? So Zoom, COVID is a great example. Yes, our life moved on. We all survived. Our businesses worked very well because we had a lot of automation in our hand. Zoom was a great tool, but look at the side effects on so many kids, right? Who are having mental health issues and things like that. So while we want to automate everything and while we think everything can be connected via technology, everything can be a value add, I still think there are parts of being in those mundane meetings where you're seeing each other's faces and saying hello, right? You cannot organize your life 24 hours. Oh, every second of what I do needs to be most productive and most creative, right? Do I have all the answers? No. But I just feel that we are at the cusp, right? While we are looking at, and I also want to give one more example, is we did the same thing when we were doing globalization. Oh, globalization is the key. Everyone needs to move to, create these economies of scale, and we want to move to the low-cost centers. And COVID taught us, right, how much of us we are dependent on a couple of countries. We can't even make a single sort of ventilator or kit, right? We have lost all that expertise. So I just want to, so that's the thing I think about, right? I think it has to be think more holistically, not just how much our engineers can get, how much more our engineers can be productive, or how we can do oh, I don't want to focus on this, so let's just automate this, right? You have to think holistically in terms of society, in terms of other factors, not just productivity, in terms of mental health, in terms of emotional health, in terms of personal connectivity. So,
excellent. And certainly agree. This is highly disruptive. Did anybody have follow-ups to that or more thoughts to build on from what Ruchi said?
I just wanted to extend the previous line, automate to elevate, not eliminate, right? So I think probably it has to be thought through, like Ruchi said, it has, consequences across the ecosystem. If we take that approach, holistic approach, we probably will make it easy for everybody.
Yeah, as of now, most of the automation ideas I see, they are towards elimination, right? Again, as big, we are all part of this problem. We are trying to maximize stakeholder value. So we are trying to, move towards more productivity and everything. And I'm not saying that's a wrong model by any chance, but I think collectively we have to start thinking about the future, right? I don't want to live in a society where only 20% of the workforce is working, or 10% who can actually, are brainy, and then 80% are on some funds, right? Which government is playing because now they don't have any jobs to do. That's, at least I don't want to be part of that society. And as a leader, I would like to solve that problem. This doesn't mean we stop the automation track. This just means let's just think holistically and let's think differently. And let's say, okay, if we were to move in that, what are the other opportunities we can create? What are the other creative ways people can be engaged in, which is not just engineering job? Because we all like to do different things, right? So we cannot expect every kid who's born, either they're gonna be 20% of that workforce or has nothing else to offer.
I think that's great advice on some of those risks for business and technology leaders here. Would you have a follow-up for government, broader society, some of those other stakeholders about what they could do to help shape this?
I don't think it's such an easy problem
not easy.
to solve at all. But I think we do need to start having that conversations, right? We are a world of 6 billion people. Out of that, we have some of the smartest people on this planet. We have definitely in last 100 years, if you look at the humanity has taken such a leap forward in terms of technology. We are in Mars, we are having space travel. So I'm sure if we collectively, some of the great minds come together and say, okay, so we cannot start this technology track. This has to go, right? Means change is inevitable. But how do we make sure with this change, we are creating a society which is more equitable. We are bringing everyone along. And it is not a disparate society, right? Which more or less it's becoming, and it's very scary. And what is going to be the emotional impact? What is going to be the human cost to it?
Excellent. So I'd like to run one more question by each of you in turn. And I'll start with Param. But the question is, if you can give one piece of advice to a CEO about what actions they should be taking, what would that be?
Yeah, I would say the single most important advice that I'd give the CEO of a company would be to believe in your workforce. That is the single most valuable long-term asset that you have in your business. Believe in your workforce, not the engineers, the entire workforce, because I think everybody is important in making sure it can run an effective business. Maybe I have to give one more advice. I would basically say, take control of the transformation initiatives yourself. Don't expect anybody else to do it for you. The pace of change that we're experiencing now is not going to slow down. It's only going to go fast. So take control of the transformation initiatives, partner with somebody who has a shared long-term vision as you do, and ensure that your business is ready for what's coming next.
Excellent, thank you. Kumar?
Yeah, I think, back to basics, right? Start with why. Why are we doing the automation? It has to tie to business objectives, right? It has to start there. The second thing is there needs to be strong emphasis on continuous workforce planning, because you would have this hybrid workforce going forward. Whether it is upskilling, reskilling the employees, whether it is bettering the interaction between so-called the digital labor and the regular employees. Probably there'll be a lot of new roles like this. There'll be planners, right? The corporate language would include these activities and these programs would be done by whom and what, right? So we have to also think about how can we make these interactions smooth. Innovators like UiPath, they do things like, handoffs between people and bots, how can that be smoothened, right? And the other piece of thing that comes to my mind is it's not the panacea, right? Automation is just a tool. Mm-hmm. It's important to see how we can link up all the systems so that we can make the whole enterprise kind of intelligent, right? I would stay short of calling it autonomous, more intelligent, right? Enterprise.
Excellent, thank you. Pascal?
I think we heard a lot about customer experience over the last 1 or 2 decades, and all companies were focusing on that one. Now the focus is, I think, changing with the Great Resignation coming in on the stage, with the war for talents across the world. I see we are all facing issues, finding the right talents, finding people. So I think the war now is about employee experience or people experience, and we should all focus on that. That's the key thing. And I think it's an experience. So back to your point, it has, as we used to design customer experience, which were not only including the technology aspect, but also all the other aspects of the experience, we need to think about the same for employee experience, and it's a holistic approach.
Perfect, thank you. And finally?
I think I've already said it all, right? I think as we move towards the technology, we have to start incorporating more human angle, right? And I'm very proud that I work at Accenture, where we really put people at the core of everything we do, and we really take great pride in taking care of our people. So I think that's a big thing, I would say, right? Like as we are in the technology curve, right? Like it's not about saying, oh yes, we are going to create this sort of a dichotomy of a society, right? Like we need to think holistically. We need to think experiences. We need to say, okay, even if you're automating mundane tasks, right? There might be other things we are leaving behind, which are the emotional angle, the touch point angles. So we have to figure out as we move forward, how do you incorporate that, right? As we go in those automation journey.
Perfect. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to our experts. Do we have any quick questions before they leave the stage? We actually have one quick
Great.
question. Not so fast.
Thank you for that informative panel. It's a comment. I was reminded of a story I read where it's a conversation between the HR director and the CEO, and the HR director says that we invest so much in reskilling the employees, what if they leave? And the CEO says, what if we don't and they stay?
Yeah. Thank you.
That was a closing remark. Loved it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. And this brings this edition of this Zinnov Confluence 2022 to a close. Thank you all so much for being here, for joining us in person and virtually.